Hello and welcome to the first part of the two-parter for Powerwolf, and we start with the band's debut album, Return in Blood Red. Released in 2005, it came out through the Europe branch of Metal Blade Records, and it was produced by Frederick Nordstrom. Now, spoiler alert, I don't really have much in terms of background for a lot of the albums I'm going to be talking about. Not really much in terms of touring, because, goddamn, there really wasn't much to find. However, I did manage to find out something interesting about their debut album, in that it was recorded in 8 days. Also, the band's drummer had to be replaced temporarily by Tom Dina during recording due to something called tendinitis, which is not a good thing. Anyway, I should actually talk about the album itself now that I'm done ripping off Wikipedia articles. So, yeah, I sort of knew a little bit of what I was getting into with these guys because I listened to their last album, which came out last year, and yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Loved a lot of the instrumentation on it. It does lean probably the most into the campy stuff that they're doing, trying to bring about a concept about werewolves and death. Really interesting stuff to say the least. Really good storytelling on hand. Really solid performance jobs, especially from Attila Dawn, the lead singer. Really like a lot of the guitar work too. It's just a really solid bit of music, honestly. It fills out the length really nicely. And in terms of production, it is fairly clean. It's probably the roughest sounding of all their albums, but then again, it was a debut, and it still has a lot of really good parts even with that going for it. So yeah, I'd recommend obviously giving it a spin because it's been out for almost, almost 20 years, 17 years, rounding it up a little bit there. My favourite song goes to The Evil Made Me Do It. So yeah, really solid debut from Powerwolf. Really like how a lot of it played out. Just a very fun, occasionally silly bit of music with really good chops from everything involved. I really enjoyed it. Next is the band's second album, Lupus Day, released in 2007, and it came out through Metal Blade Europe again, and it was produced by Frederick Nordstrom again. So it sort of instantly leaves off of where the last one was. There was a bit of touring too. They did do the Europe in Blood Red tour, so there you go, covered a little bit of touring that I could get from Wikipedia. Thank you, Wikipedia, you're always helpful with these. And yeah, this is more of a unique concept album, much like Return in Blood Red did deal with a lot of folklore sort of themes and old tales and stuff. This one is, according to Wikipedia, which we've got open, it's possibly a reference to the story of Thais of Kultenbrunn, a Livonian man who lived in Jörgenberg, Swedish Livonia in 1692, and publicly admitted to being a werewolf, referring to himself as the Hound of God, boldly claiming that he and other werewolves went to hell to fight the devil. Now, that is a fucking badass story. I mean, obviously it might have been true back then, because you could get away with a lot more back then than you can now, but yeah, that's a really interesting thing to base your album off of, if it is the thing, because it says it may be a reference to it, so I just really hope it is. The album still fucking rocks either way. Massive step-ups in instrumentation. Really love how they start experimenting a little bit more with the riffs here. Love the lyrical concept, if that is one, sort of tying it down, and I really hope it is, because I like it when bands do that, especially with sort of more old folky stuff from European countries. It's always really fun when they do it from there. Love the production as well. The performances are really good. Yeah, just another really solid bit of power metal, which does take itself a little bit more seriously, a bit more darker, and I think it's definitely the right shift for them. My favourite song goes to the title track, Lupus Day, and yeah, again, I would super duper recommend this. Just a very fun, very, very, very fun bit of power metal. Next is the band's third album, Bible of the Beast. Released in 2009, it would have again the same label and again the same producer, and really couldn't find a lot of background going into this, although they did release the Whack and Worship video album before this, which was video footage taken of them during their performance at Whack and Open Air, so, it's got that. This album has my first Powerwolf song in Resurrection by Erection, and I didn't listen to it back then because I didn't know Powerwolf existed back then, but it was my first song by them, and I think it was a weirdly appropriate way to get into Powerwolf, if that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, this album also does a unique thing as well, because their previous albums had mixings of English and some Latin language as well. This is the first one where they actually start speaking German in some of the song's lyrics, which I do appreciate, and from what I could see from the lyrics, there really wasn't as much of a concept for this one. It did mostly seem to be, again, some old dark fantasy tales based on werewolves, obviously, and things like that. Again, just some really fun instrumentation. Love the solo work, it has stepped up massively as well, and yeah, just love a lot of it. The production's still great. I mean, Nordstrom is really fantastic working with these guys, and yeah, just structured really well too, honestly. The band's albums have really, really good length, and they pad out the length in some really fun and interesting ways, and this album is a really solid example of that. My favourite song goes to Seven Deadly Saints, which, again, I love the wordplay that they do with some of the song titles. So yeah, this is just another really fun slice of metal from them, you know, obviously adding some new elements as well. Not as conceptualised as the last one was, but it's still a really great album that continues building on what they've already built. And finally, for part 1, we cover the band's 4th album, Blood of the Saints, released in 2011. It would be their last through Metal Blade, and it was produced by Nordstrom again. Again, I really couldn't find a lot of background or touring stuff. They did do some touring for their second album that where they supported Gravedigger on a tour. But yeah, for this one, really not so much, although they did get nominated for a Metal Hammer Award of Best Metal Anthem for their song Raise Your Fist Evangelist from their 3rd album. And I have to agree, because that song really does rock, but we're talking about this album, and again, really solid stuff. It is their first one with new drummer Tom Dana, who sort of, like, I mentioned him earlier, he was sort of on the debut after their original drummer had to step off because he was sick. So yeah, really liked how he came in. Tom does a really great job here, and the album itself, again, really rocks. I think it's a really solid way to sort of lean into the 2010 decade. Really love the instrumentation. Again, the solos just keep going up and up. Love that there's more experimentation with it. There does seem to be, again, less of a campy focus. I think this is when they start taking themselves a lot more seriously, but there's not much of a dark vibe to it either, which sort of like baffled me. It's still about what it's about, what the band's about, but it's handled in a much more mature way without going too serious, and I do appreciate that. They're still having a lot of fun with it, but they know the limits of that, and obviously production is really, really solid as well. The bands are really great. Tom is a fantastic replacement for Stefan. Is that his name? Yes, it is. I had to check to make sure, and I was correct. Thank goodness for that. But yeah, really solid all around. My favourite song goes to Phantom of the Funeral, and honestly, just a really great album. A really nice way to end their time with Metal Blade as well, because it would be the last album with them. And yeah, obviously, you know, this was the time when they were starting to gain a bit more speed in the mainstream because of the, you know, Metal Hammer nomination. So just really good shit from them, and you gotta love it. But that'll about do it for this one. I will see you tomorrow for part 2. Also, I will probably be streaming the Go Home show for PPW vs AVW a bit earlier than normal tonight, because I've got to be up super early to help my brother with something. So yeah, that's gonna be fun. But I'm just letting you all know now, so that, you know, you don't get confused as to why I might be starting maybe an hour earlier. I don't know when it'll be. I just know I'll be starting whenever I can, as soon as I've had food, basically. So that'll be for that, but as for now, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye-bye.